All right, let's do this. React Angular at the Angular conference. Speaking of React, are you ready? Sorry. Are you ready to fight? To have that old good fight, React against Angular. Come on. Are you ready? Yay! Unfortunately, I have to disappoint you because fight leads to the veterans. And it's usually a waste of the time to do these flame wars and rants and hate against each other, right? So what can we do instead? We can sit down, have a cup of tea, and try to learn from each other, right? And in the end, become better developers. Question is, how to achieve that? By the way, hello everyone. My name is Martin Hochel. I work as principal software engineer for a company called ngMetadata in Prague, Czech Republic, and I'm also web developer expert for Google. You can follow me on Twitter or medium.com. I'm also contributing to open source as much as possible. Besides that, I'm running the biggest JavaScript meetup in Prague called ngParty. By the way, that ng stands for next generation. You see what I did there? I'm author of ngMetadata, the best AngularJS yet, and I'm a co-member of SkateJS, a tiny reactive library for writing web components. And besides that, yeah, I have some free time left. I skate, wake, snowboard, and all these kind of things. All right, so how to achieve equilibrium and leveraging from other ecosystems? To solve this out, we need to take a look at three particular areas of our daily jobs. First is tools. What tools do we use, right? Second one is architecture. How do we build our apps? And last but the most important one is what libraries are we using to achieve our goals. So as a baseline for showcasing all these use cases, we'll use industry standard for booting up new Angular apps, which is Angular CLI. And you can boot your new app via npx, so you don't have to ever install things globally, which is bad for your environment and maybe for your health as well, I don't know. Okay, so let's take a look at what CLI gives us by default. From the libraries perspective, we have Angular and Rx. Nothing surprising on that front, right? From an architecture point of view, these clickers make it crazy. It's up to you, it's Angular. You can use services, keep your state on components, or use some Fluxy stuff. Really up to you. Toolings is the area where things are getting interesting, right? So what we got? We have Webpack as a module bundler. Thanks, Sean. Then we have Selenium for writing end-to-end tests with Protractor, Karma and Jasmine, and last but not least, the best thing that ever happened to JavaScript, TypeScript, with the tools for static analysis like TSLint and Codalyzer. Before I continue, I have to apologize. I'll be introducing a few tombstones just to give back the Angular team what they did to AngularJS at NG Europe 2014, but I had to do it, you know. All right, let's talk about tools. So we'll start with Task Runner and Package Manager. So probably most of you in the room are using npm, right? Hands up, who's using npm? 90% of the audience. That's good, no worries. But you can use Yarn, which used to be much faster, like npm is getting there, but still, it's super fast, it's reliable, it works offline. It also works behind our corporate proxy, which is very good. And overall, it gets much better developer experience in comparison with npm. From a point of view as a task runner, how would you execute a locally installed TypeScript binary from the terminal? Any guesses? You need to write the whole path to the binary, which is really cumbersome, right? With Yarn, you can just hit Yarn and the name of the binary, and it will be executed because Yarn resolves the local paths. So it does this dirty work for you, which is really convenient. How would you run a custom npm script? You need to do this, npm run, and the name of the script. With yarn, you can omit the run. Right? Not a big deal, but I'm lazy, you know? Anyways, how would you pass some custom arguments to some custom npm script? You need to double dash to terminate the statement and then provide those arguments. Nah. With yarn, it works how it should work, right? So you just pass the arguments and it works. That's great. Also, how you upgrade your packages. You are just watching every day in the morning like, hey fella, is there some new Angular version? No, I don't know. Well, Yarn has this CLI tool which will give you all the package names in your package.json file, and you can update from this CLI, which is really convenient. All right, that was package management. What about formatting your source code? So again, Angular CLI comes with tslint. So with running this command, you can reformat your code and apply those various rules, your style guides. And there are two types, like formatting rules and code quality rules. Linter, main purpose of linter is to format and fix those code quality rules and issues, right? But formatting rules? I don't know. Do you think this is okay to get bugged by the linter, like, hey buddy, there is a space needed or semicolon. That's not very nice, right? So if you think this is right, you are fundamentally wrong. And because of that, we need to introduce the first tombstone for tslint as a tooling for formatter. So what should be used instead? Nothing. We can use Prettier, an opinionated formatter from Facebook and open source community, which is super fast. It parses your code to the AST and it reprints the whole code base with a new formatted code. And it's really great. It works with JavaScript files, TypeScript, CSS, HTML is on its way, GraphQL, and other formats of code. How to add it to CLI? You just install Prettier, and by running Prettier with some glow pattern, your whole code base will be reformatted in the snap of a finger. That's not the end of the story, right? Because there is still the tslint with some formatting rules, and Prettier is formatter, so there are some clashes. We have package for that. You can add tslint config Prettier and just extend your tslint.json, and it will basically turn off all the common rules that may be in conflict. For use cases that there are still some rules in conflict, there is a binary which you will execute and will print out all the rules that you need to remove. That's good, but I'm lazy. I really don't want to write this code all the way, like run linter, run Prettier and stuff. We are much better than that, and we have tooling from React community and other communities. In particular, we should use lint-staged and Husky. Lint-staged needs some config, and what is Husky? It hooks into native Git hooks, and you can define all well-known Git hooks in your package.json. In our case, you can run pre-commit, and on pre-commit execute lint-staged binary, and lint-staged will find this config and will apply linter and Prettier on your source code. And everything will be applied to the one commit, so there is no additional commit, and you don't ever have to argue with your colleague during code review, like, hey man, semicolon is the best. No. Okay, let's talk about more serious stuff. Unit testing. Who writes unit tests? Hands up. 70% of the audience. Those who didn't raise their hand, they are at the doors. I'm just kidding, but seriously, write test. It's just do it. So Angular CLI comes with Karma and Jasmine. I've been using these two since AngularJS. They work. Are they fast? Are they reliable? Do you enjoy debugging experience with those? I'm not. So because of that, another tombstone is here. What should be instead? Don't write tests, right? Obviously. No. We can use Jest. which is a testing framework from Facebook and open source community. It's super easy to set up, it's blazingly fast, it has beautiful CLI and watch mode, and it introduces new type of test called snapshot test. Again, how to add it to CLI, you just install Jest and just preset Angular, which takes care of all that setup with the zones and that messy stuff that Angular comes with, right? And you're ready to go. Talking about speed. Let's say we have some 20 tests, right? And we will execute them with Karma and Jasmine against Chrome. 15 seconds. Is that slow? Is that fast? I don't know. We can do still better, right? We can use some headless browser. Let's say we use Phantom. 2 seconds less, almost. Great, right? So what about the jesting? Whoopee! 3 times faster. Okay, but now you may ask like, yeah, sure, soft talk, just some numbers, right? I hear you, I hear you. So there was this one weekend, it was raining, I wasn't able to skateboard, so I took the whole AngularIO test suite and I have rewritten it to Jest. So this is the execution time with Karma and Jasmine, 24 seconds, okay? Almost 8 seconds with Jest, right? 3 times faster. And why it's so fast? Well, Jest runs against Node.js. You can even use virtual browser or DOM implementation, it's called JS DOM. All the tests are run in parallel and there are very effective caching mechanisms. So yeah, just all the things. What about snapshot test? So this is the standard test, right, of your Angular component, and all you need to do is to use this new assertion called toMatch snapshot. And what it does, it will physically store a snapshot file of your component in that particular state, the template representation. And if some of your colleague on the next iteration, on the next sprint, introduces some changes, which will break the component, you will get this beautiful diff, right? The visual diff that will say you what changed. And you may update it or reject it. It's up to you. And Jest comes with many, many other features, which we don't have time to cover, but definitely check it out. Okay, we will stay with testing for a while, end-to-end testing. The same question, who writes end-to-end tests? Hands up. Yeah, like 10% of the audience. And for those who raise their hands, who enjoys writing end-to-end tests? 1. Oh yeah, been there, I know what you're talking about, man. So it's really painful, right? Angular CLI comes with Protractor, which uses Selenium under the hood. Every time that I use Selenium, I want to fight somebody. It's not very reliable, tests are flaky, again, debugging experience. Even need to run Protractor against TS nodes, so another abstraction, good luck debugging, and come on, I mean, it's 2018 and we can do much better, right? So another tombstone for Protractor and Selenium. So what we should do instead? Humans, no. We can use this thing called Test Cafe, which is a pure Node.js solution for writing end-to-end tests. It's cross-platform and cross-browser. And it's open source, of course. We have been using it for the last 9 months in my company, and we are highly satisfied with this. Again, how to incorporate it with CLI. You just install Test Cafe or Test Cafe Live, which uses the watch mode for writing your tests. So you have very nice feedback when you're writing it. And then you just hit Yarn Test Cafe, you provide the browsers and the glow pattern. And that's it. 0 configuration. It works. Show me your demo, Martin, right? All right. Here is some pizza app. And this is just some end-to-end test that creates and deletes the new pizza. And I will press save, and immediately just the one end-to-end test is rerun. That was fast. Okay, we can slow down the test just to see what this is doing, right? What we are testing. Okay, again I press save, the test is rerun. Right, so we are creating new pizza. Yup. Then we go back to the product list, then back to the new create a pizza, and we delete a pizza just to clean after ourselves. Okay, that's cool. Let's add some toppings, maybe. We add toppings to our code. Again, I press save. The test is rerun. Yeah, the same pizza. Toppings, chili, right? Bacon, bacon. Oh yeah, bacon is a must-have. We create the pizza, again we go back to product list, to the create a pizza, we delete the pizza. And now we'll comment out the delay just to see how fast it is in real life. I press save. That was fast. That's really beautiful. I mean, with Test Cafe, I really want to be developer in test. Not really, but you know. and TypeScript is first-class citizen with Test Cafe, so you don't have to run it against TS Node or some other abstractions, which is brilliant. Okay, so what about component-driven development, or how do you develop living UI style guide with your components with Angular, right? I don't know, but I've been using React for the last 2 years, and there was this tool called Storybook. And Storybook allows you to write stories for a particular components, and it builds the whole catalog of your component for the consumers. And it looks like this. So there are all your components defined of the stories with various states, write some buttons. You can even define the whole app as a showcase for the demo, and you can interact with those demos, right? So there is some component, I don't know, and it has properties name and age. I can replace this with my real name. Yeah, that's my name and my real age. I'm getting old. Anyways, it also supports non-primitive data like arrays, objects, dates, so on and so forth. So here I'm just changing the fruit to banana. Everything is reflected in the UI, right? Changing the dates. And this is really beautiful. Me as a consumer of your component library, I really want to do this. How to add it to CLI? You can execute npx Storybook CLI, and you should try this as the first thing tomorrow in the morning. And you just run this, and then you have just a quick chat like, hey, have you seen this dude at the AngularUP conference? Yeah, he was ranting about Angular, you know, and mentioning that React is cool, and I don't like him, you know, I don't know. And it's pretty fast, and it will detect that you're an Angular project, and it will set up everything for you. So you have nothing to do, right? It just works. This is brilliant developer experience. So how does a snapshot look like? It's very similar to unit test. So again, you define some story, like describe log, in our case it's button, and then you add those cases, those stories, right? You're using old good Angular templates with all the data binding and syntax, and you need to provide via props the scope that needs to be reflected into the template. Easy as that. And as an end game, this is how your component should look like a real reusable component. There is implementation, there are stories for the storybook, there are unit tests, styling, and snapshots if you're using Jest. All right, that was tooling. Let's briefly talk about architecture. And we will stay with the components for a while. So let's take a look how Angular defines components and how React does it, right? So React uses component as a base class, Angular uses decorators. Different syntax, but same pattern, basically. How do we extend our component behavior? React uses a more functional approach via high-order functions. In Angular, you can use class makes-sense or directives, which is a more OOP approach. But again, it's very similar. For rendering your view, the source of truth in React is render method, which uses JSX. In Angular, you can use the same as inline templates. I highly recommend using inline templates. We are using only inline templates in our code base. CSS, really up to you what you want to use. And the really important thing, React has immutable props by default. What does it mean? The component re-renders only if you change some prop or internal state. And you can achieve the same with Angular by configuring detection strategy to onPush. So again, just different syntax, but same principles. And there is also this stateful and stateless component pattern. There are billions of articles on the internet. You can look it up. I highly recommend the one from Dan Abramov. What about state management, right? So React uses this state. Angular has instances of classes. That's not very similar, but it's still in the scope of component. Then we have dependency injection if both React and Angular, just different syntaxes, both use hierarchy of the injection mechanism. So that's very similar indeed. But to really decouple and use the same pattern in both, we need some flux pattern. In our case, we're using Redux. Okay, last part, libraries. Mentioning Redux, you're maybe using ngRx store, right? Which is the official Angular Redux library, which is cool, but it has one issue for my team. It's tightly coupled to Angular, and we don't want to use two libraries to do the same thing. So instead, you can use just pure Redux and Redux bindings to Angular with both React and Angular, and leverage the same resources, the plethora of middlewares out there, and so on and so forth. Also, you better use reselect for writing efficient selectors to your state and hiding the complexity of your state. Works with both Angular and React. What about side effects? Again, maybe you know that library ngRx/effects, which is official recommended way how to handle side effects with Angular. Doesn't work for us. We cannot use it with React. So fortunately, there is this library called Redux Observable, which uses, again, RxJS under the hood. So it's basically the same, like ngRx effects. And what is an epic? It introduces the term of epics, right? So here is a one-way data flow, Redux data flow. There is the epic. And then the stream of actions goes through all the reducers, and after that's done, the stream continues to our epics. And one of the epic may be registered like, hey man, do something if this action arrives, and it will do some side effect, in our case, some HTTP request to the backend server, and when that resolves, it emits a new stream of action, and again, it will go through all the reducers in one way, and reprint the view, and so on and so forth. So epics action in, action out, via power of RxJS. Last library, this is kind of controversial, right? So Angular has HTTP client, which is based on observables, which is okay, but I don't really want to subscribe to get some data all the time, so you can use Axios, which is promise-based. And even if you're using flux pattern as we do with Redux, all your logic or handling your side effects should be in the epics. So with that said, if you're using Axios, you have one pipe less to write, but you are not losing the flexibility and power of RxJS anyway. So yeah, Axios. We are at the end. So what did we learn today? We introduce better defaults to Angular CLI from other ecosystems, in particular React and so on and so forth. So for the libraries, we introduce Redux Observable and pure Redux, Axios for HTTP. From the architecture perspective, one-way data flow, immutable data. And from the tools, we introduce Prettier as a formatter, Jest as a solid unit testing tool, Storybook for writing or living style guides, and Test Cafe for reliable end-to-end tests. If you want to know more, I've written a detailed article about this at my Medium blog post. There is also an example application and starter at my GitHub profile. You can check it out and start playing with it. I've also written schematics for booting up new Angular app with these better defaults, but it works with Angular CLI version 1. I'll be updating these schematics in the upcoming weeks to the latest Angular CLI. So with that said, we can be all friends, we can share knowledge, and in the end, become better developers who write better apps for own consumers. With that said, thank you very much for your attention and enjoy the conference.